Hello, everybody. Welcome to our very first Edu-panel series from the TTRPG Collective. Hello.
Hey! Woo, woo, woo,
This
woo.
one is called Imposter Syndrome and You, and it is all about imposter syndrome, how the creative process is stifled or hindered by the imposter that resides in all of us. Miri, thank you for the raid for 16. That's
Yay!
wonderful. Yay, welcome everybody. Really quick before I start with the introduction of our panelists, I want to say that there is a global strike right now for to call for a ceasefire in Gaza, and in the meantime, we are running our stream as a charity stream. So if you type in exclamation mark charity, you'll get a link to above. There's a little bar with Doctors Without Borders. A bunch of TTRPG content creators have really like wowed everybody with how much we've been able to raise so far. It started off at 1,000 as like our first goal, and now we're creeping up on 15,000. So this is an all January thing, but I'm just gonna gently encourage you to go visit, share, donate if you are able. Every penny counts. And we are here with our panelists. I would like to introduce everybody and then have everybody kind of speak a little bit about themselves. First, we have Therapy and Dragons, aka Chris, and you've probably seen him on Threads spreading really kind, warm affirmations to everybody in the space. And he is a licensed therapist. And we also have Shannon Dias, who is a certified personal coach, and she also is somebody that just is a beacon of light when it comes to community and like having joy burst through grief and all of the icky feelings that we all feel as creatives. And we have our beloved case study, who S.J. McKean, who is
Yay, poster child. Yay.
who will be speaking to the experience of a creative in the thick of it in terms of dealing with imposter syndrome. He has been so kind as to share his very vulnerable experiences with it. But without further ado, I would like to everybody to be able to have a chance to introduce themselves, tell a little more about who you are, who are your pronouns, what do you do, and where we can find you on the internet. And I will start with Chris.
Okay, so my name's Chris, everyone. I'm an associate's marriage and family therapy, so not licensed yet, but getting there. But I am licensed to work here in the state that I'm in. I'm just a humble guy. I put my pants on one leg at a time, sometimes two, if I'm feeling adventurous in that day. You can find me on Threads. You can find me on Instagram. Instagram's more of my silly kind of meme area. And Threads is where I'm more positive, but both have a lot more positive affirmations in both. So either where you go, you're gonna get a lot of positive stuff, a little bit of mental health as well. And I think that's all you wanted.
Yeah, we're yeah, actually that was because the next question is what does imposter syndrome look like to you, but we're not going to get there yet. Shannon, how about you?
Hi. So I'm Shannon. You can find all my links to everything at imagineif.shop. It'll take you to my link tree and has everything on there. I am mostly Imagineif everywhere that you see me. TikTok is the probably only exception. I am always Imagineif on there, but I really pretty much live in Threads right now when I'm not in the Discord server. So like you said, I'm a certified personal coach. I'm also an artist, a writer. I am someone who is journeying with grief and just usually on a side quest. So I'm neurodivergent like the rest of us in here. And yeah, just trying to do what I can to do my part in helping others through some healing, find some joy, and yeah, just take those baby steps that you need to take every day to find a little bit more joy in your life, and don't try not to take it too seriously, but also honor the rough stuff, So yeah.
Absolutely. And what about you,
She,
SJ?
her, by the way.
Oh, thank you. And SJ.
SJ or Steve, whatever's easy. I'm certifiable. I don't really, I don't have any other certificates that say
Me
that.
too.
I'm a voice actor primarily for video games. Just got started in that, transitioning to that from theater, which I was in for decades. So it's a fairly new field for me. And the as far as like the TTRPG world builder thing, that's just something that I've been doing for decades, since I was 16, as initially a coping mechanism, and then somehow, some way, other people found out about it, and now I'm just kind of like, fuck. So that's where
Well,
we are.
that's a really good segue into our very first question. So I'll start with you.
Yeah.
Tell us about your personal journey with imposter syndrome. When do you feel it the most, and what have you done to mitigate it?
When do I feel it the most? First, I had to understand that it was such a thing. I went through life believing that um, challenges were damn near impossible unless certain conditions were met, such as deadlines were rapidly approaching. This is something I have to do, but I don't know if that's more of an ADHD thing or what have you, but certainly the procrastination and the lack of worthiness and the creation of my own projects or the fulfillment of my own projects, that absolutely just got me going. Um, Many times, I think there are a couple of exceptions to it, and it's those things that have simply become a part of my life, like breathing. Those things don't bother me, but a new project will absolutely send me spinning. And even on a mediocre day, there will be days when I've been doing the very thing that I've been doing for a number of decades just simply is not for me that day. I applying for jobs. There's no way, not a chance in hell that I will ever be able to get the job that I want, not because I'm not qualified for it. It's because why would anybody want that? Why would anybody? What is it that I bring to the table that all these people that have these names and they come out of AAA studios in the video game industry? It's a, so it freezes me up consistently, and it's a everyday thing. What do I do to mitigate it? Was the second part?
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. We were talking during the pre-stream about that very thing, and it is for me. Um, Number one is the understanding that this is a fictional representation of my life and my worth, and that it has absolutely nothing to do with me. But sometimes you can't see the forest through the trees. So knowledge is key. Understanding that this is something that does affect people, that it can be remedied, and that this isn't actually normal life. Meaning not normal in the sense of like normal slash abnormal. It's that it doesn't have to be this way, that you can address it through therapy. So one, understanding that you have it. Um, Two, there's a couple of little tricks that I ended up developing. Um, I taught myself this, and it was like, okay, if I want to create a new map for this fantasy world or something like that, I usually dive in headfirst into big ass projects, and then 5 years will pass by, and I just don't get anything done until that one day that I just open up something, and it could be a piece of paper and a pen, and I just start writing. I write down one word. Or these days, I'll go up on stream. And what ends up happening is it takes me out of the lock that I placed on myself, puts me into a slightly different mode with zero expectation. I could stream, and I know that I can do anything on my stream. I'm held accountable to the quality of it according to my own needs, but eventually somebody starts talking to me, and then it's showtime. I'm an actor. So I've always donned the armor of a character when it came to performances, thus allowing Steve or SJ to disappear and then the character to come forward. So I developed a routine which I had become practiced, and then after some time, it just became second nature. But I still, to this very day, go through that. And the online public persona or the streamer persona is not me. If it were me, you would never know me. You wouldn't see me. So I don't always mitigate it. Sometimes I can't. Sometimes I'm paralyzed by it.
Yeah, I think that that's the analysis paralysis kind of situation. Not so much you're analyzing, but just you're frozen. definitely resonates with a lot of people. Shannon, what is your personal journey with imposter syndrome, and what do you do?
Sure. Before I get into mine, I just wanted to kind of respond back to an SJ, like the what struck me is you're putting on this mask and you're going out into the world and you're putting on the persona, you're
Yeah.
putting on the actor part. So you're not being authentic to yourself, and in that case where you think that the real SJ can't go on camera, you have to put the persona on and play the part in there. So it's that authenticity sometimes, I think, where it's hard. It's really hard to be vulnerable and to like open that stuff up. And it's not to say that you're not being authentic in in what you do. It's just it's another part. We all kind of put a mask on a little bit when we
Sure.
go out
Yeah,
there.
I was going to touch on that. I disagree with the notion that it's not me being authentic. After all, the
Right.
origin of it is still within me, and it is me that is still generating that
Right.
personality. However, and nothing that I say or do doesn't come from my own heart, and none of it is a lie.
Right.
Understanding that's not where you were going with it. I think we all have to understand that and this was a part of my own acceptance of it, and why I do it. As an actor, it's easy. This is a character. You no longer, and whether I'm playing Little John or I'm voicing a video game character or somebody, it's easy. I can just hide behind that stuff. When it's in person representing myself and strictly myself, sometimes that can get excruciating. But oddly, you can put me in front of 10,000 people and I can talk about my private life and I could talk about anything and I can do it and I can all have them dancing. It's just part of the entertainer thing. I'm a showman. So I
Yeah.
have the skill set to be able to do that. That to me is not an act. The act is I'm coming into corporate America. I'm going out for an interview. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. There are certain ways that I need to behave and certain things I need to say. My problem is
Yes.
just even getting there.
Mm.
Anything if it's related to entertainment, I have no problem at all. None. I have no problem at all. Yeah, you give me a role, I'm on it.
Yeah. Well, because you go out into the corporate world, right? And it's a whole different thing. It's not
Yeah.
natural for people like us. Like we have to put
Interestingly,
on our own,
sure.
mask to step out there and go in and be in that, neurotypical world. Is a
Yeah.
completely different environment for us.
Yeah. I don't want to I don't want to usurp the entire conversation.
It's okay.
I'll finish up anything else that I have with this. Once I am in a creative space, I tend to thrive in creative spaces. I found my brain becoming atrophied. I used to be a systems admin, and that to me is I'm just repeating steps by rote. I understand how it works, and I just make shit happen. But when it came down to creative stuff, interestingly, if I get hired to do something, I have no problem doing it with an efficiency level that is out of this world. My work ethic is solid. But if I'm producing for myself,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can let
yeah,
yourself off the hook.
yeah. Oh, they're
Yeah.
paying me. I have to do it. That's
Right.
I have to. I have no choice, and I do it willingly. And as a team lead or as a senior in a senior position, I have no problem working with creative teams, and I absolutely love it. And I'm very often the person that other people come to in order to unlock ideas. I am thriving in those environments, but my life is a series of contrasts. In my private life, I'm sitting there pulling my fucking hair out, trying to go, why can't I draw a damn tree? Why? It's just a tree. It's the equivalent of a stick figure, and I will be pounding. It's so yeah. So it is a manner of survival for me to simply be able to cope. And if I were to ever think that I was being disingenuous and not representing myself fairly, I refuse to accept that my 57 years have been for naught.
Hmm.
Sure.
Well,
Yeah.
I would love to hear the masking and unmasking process with Shannon. Like what was your
Yeah.
experience with having to deal with corporate America and like embracing your inner creative?
Yeah. Well, and I walked away from corporate America for a long time and ran my own company and did that for many years. And then I found myself in a position where I needed to go back to work. I was back on my own again, and I needed to get back out there into the workforce. And so yeah, so I started, to get out there. But before I even get I'll answer that, and remind me if I forget, because I may squirrel. But I just wanted to kind of touch on the the same question that Steve got. So for me, that imposter syndrome comes out a little bit differently. Um, I don't know if it's growing up female or whatever, but I embraced really early um, the confidence to go out into the world and like I was always the person who was like empowering or inspiring the next person. I was very strong in who I was as an individual, and I just kind of stayed with that out there. Um, but talking about myself and like even at the beginning when you did the intro, like there's 1,000 ways I could have answered that and talked about myself. I still struggle talking about myself. That's where the imposter syndrome kicks in for me. I can interview people all day, every day, and have a conversation and hype them up and do all the things. And I'm confident in my abilities and the general worth of me, but it just feels weird. It still feels weird, and so I have to it's something that I kinda struggle through, and I'm the same. I can get up and I could talk in front of a panel. I can, be in a room full of a bunch of people. I've done, a bunch of that, type of work. My background is in broadcast, so, I was a editor and producer for many years, and so I'm not shy to it, but and the confidence is there. But when it's the spotlight is on me and we're talking about me, that it's very difficult, for me to be in that situation. And the mask specifically, I feel like I put a mask on every time I went out into that corporate world at all.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I still kind of do this, to this day, even though so much of what I do is about helping people realize their authenticity and owning that space. There is a part of that I feel like that is unsafe, and so that's why we put the mask on. And I think people don't really come out and say that it's unsafe because you know is it really causing harm, and people start having a discussion about it. And I would argue that I think it is, because there's so many environments out there where people can't be themselves for whatever reason, or whatever reason. And it's usually because of some specific way that we're taught that we have to go in, we have to behave this way, we have to wear certain clothes, we have to act, a certain way, talk a certain way, we have to be at the desk from 9 to 5, and, all these different things. And I think it's very difficult for people who don't function in that environment. I have been very lucky, even in the job that I have now. It's my muggle job, which is not my passion project. So I'm a certified personal coach, but I don't get paid enough to do that right now. Right. My actual job is director of communications, and I get paid very well to do that. And that's, what I do in my daytime muggle job, but I do it in whatever hours work for me and the terms that work for me. I put the hours in, but I do them on my schedule and nobody's on top of me for that. I'm lucky to do that. A lot of people don't have that. They have to get up.
Mhm.
So at the start of all of that, and to answer your follow-up question, um, and I'll pause for a second just to say that, because it's gonna come up, multiple times, so I'm gonna just, break into it now. But, my son died of an overdose, in 2018, and so that obviously changed my entire world.
Yeah.
And when that happened, I went away, for a very long time. I was not going out into the world and doing things like I was before. The person I was before is gone. There's a new person in place,
Mhm.
and it took me a really long time to get back out into the world. And that's where that mask comes in, because every time I go out into the world now, every time, there's a mask on,
Mm-hmm.
because I can't completely drop it, because I have to function in society.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I go out into that world and I'm, going to the store and I hear a song or, whatever it is that's going to trigger a response in me, I'm already, have the suit of armor. I've gotten up that morning and I've put on all the layers so that it doesn't hit me like a ton of bricks when it happens. I've got it in there, and I've given myself enough time to pause and walk away and, and do what I've got to do. But so having the mask is not a negative, right? I don't want anybody to think that putting that mask on is something where they're not being authentic to themselves. Putting the mask on is your suit of armor. You have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's finding those safe spaces, I think, where you can let that mask down and you can start to settle in and, and just kind of be yourself a little bit.
Yeah. For Chris, to follow up on that and to kind of tie in your own personal experience, as somebody who has clients that you see who also really struggle with this sort of balance of donning the armor and taking it off, how much of your own personal experience do you bring to work? And what does that personal experience look like if you were to explain it to somebody, meaning us?
Sure. But first, thank you, Stephen and Shannon, for that, and especially for Shannon. I just want my condolences for you and your son. I'm very sorry.
Thank you.
Back to the question. It's that's a big one, and one I'm glad to answer. For myself, a little story about what happened. I was probably like this close to not making therapy and dragons.
Mm.
Like, the imposter syndrome was really strong about me to create this thing or not, just because that little wonderful voice, which we all have, which is different, probably has a different character. If you had it, probably the most annoying uh, NPC Bobo the Goblin character in your campaigns.
It's the worst.
But what would happen would be, I would tell myself, there's what would be the point of creating this kind of outlet for people? What would be my goal? What would be, what would I do with anything like that nature? And so that is kind of it almost stopped me because of that. I was almost like, oh man, do I want to listen to those voices, or do I feel like I can be, just a slight change, a slight invitation for more kindness in the world? At least, a small thing. I don't need to be a huge grand thing, but I would love to be this voice that people can go to alleviate some of the pain they may be going through, and just helping others to feel like their day isn't going to crumble, that they can look and see a small sliver of hope. That was the goal that I realized after I didn't listen to those voices, what I could provide to people, and that's what I wanted to do. That's what it kind of looks like to me at times. And to talk about what it's like at work, so I work with adolescents and kids, so they don't have it as much yet. And so what I bring to that, I usually it's for more towards adults, and things of that nature. And so I bring in myself, really. Um, I bring in who I am naturally. On my door, on my office, I haven't posted a picture of this yet, but on my door it have "Here There Be Dragons." And so it can be, for the kids love it, but also um, it's very important for adults too, because guess what? Some of this imposter syndrome, it's dragon. It's a very big dragon to you to not go and um, and to follow what you feel like. Like with Steve, sometimes it hinders you from doing what you could and bringing that potential. It's a huge dragon. And that is something that I help with others, like to not listen to that, because in my thinking, imposter syndrome is definitely a mindset. It is a way of thinking. It's a kind of mode. Not that you can be stuck in it for a little bit, but you're not stuck in it entirely.
Yeah.
And so as you kind of progress through life, there's moments where you are stuck, and there are moments when you are not stuck. And I think that's what's really important to note is, just trying your best to not get stuck and listen to this Bobo the Goblin that's not helping your party.
I never actually thought about it that way as a mode. And it changes because that means that there's like a toggle. And if there's a toggle, that means that there's a not that mode. And that's a handy that's a handy perspective to arm yourself with. That's good. That's good.
Yeah, it's not always constant. It's a mode. There are days where you can not even think about imposter syndrome. There are days where it comes at you. It's boom there.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's an insidious little fucker. It just it hides out underneath the desk, and it's like, hey, this is awesome. I'm gonna sit down here in my studio. I'm gonna get some work done. And why are you here? And
I mean, I'll talk about it later if the question arises. But I did do some research on this. It's actually really fun. It wasn't called imposter syndrome. It was called imposter phenomenon.
Really?
And I'll do a little bit. There's an actual research article that you can go and look at. It says the first identified clinical work was from Clance and Imes. That was in 1978. And the people that they found that had it was, this is going to be, I know I'm not going anywhere. I'm just saying this is what the article said, but it was, they saw it in women. And high achieving women.
Mm-hmm.
High cheating women?
High achieving.
High achieving.
Oh, high cheating. It's like that's cherry picking data at that point. Oh, okay.
That's a whole different podcast we have to
do. Yeah, the women who are high achieving, they saw that they had imposter syndrome because of that. And so I was like, oh, this is really interesting. Then they later found out it's also can be found in men. They don't have a study for that one yet to see who is more prevalent in. But I found that very interesting. I want to share with you. And there's one other thing I'll share, and then I'll turn it over back to Erin.
1 second. What year was that study?
This was done. Let me get to it real quick.
I think he said 1978.
The first
70s.
The study was done in 1978. It was the first identified in the clinical work of Clance and Imes.
It's an interesting society that was also taking place at that time as so I can understand it. It's like societally women were relatively new to the workplace on force, en masse, and that would put a tremendous amount of pressure. And if you have a whole bunch of men who are just like standing around going, look at this fucking dame coming in here telling us what to do. Yeah, you're going to have a problem with that sometimes.
Yeah.
We still have that.
Yeah, we do.
That has not gone away.
They don't say dame, but
I know. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
By the way, I curse a lot, so
it's on this channel there will be cursing. It's okay.
And I'll end with this. So I want to bring this because I found this interesting, and Steve, you might feel this way, but they have the imposter cycle. This cycle begins with worry, self-doubt, and intense fears of discovery, which then leads to either procrastination or over-preparation.
Stop yelling at me.
This is typically followed by the project success, but the success is then attributed to some external cause.
Yep.
The procrastination or over-preparation for the imposter reinforces their belief that success was not authentic.
Wow. You were just talking about that today too.
Can you read that again? Because he needs a minute. Can you read that
Yeah.
again?
I will read it again. The imposter cycle. This cycle begins with worry, self-doubt, and intense fears of discovery, which then leads to either procrastination or over-preparation. This is typically followed by the project's success, not failure, success. But the success is then attributed to some external cause. The procrastination or over-preparation for the imposter reinforces his or her belief that success was not authentic.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's an added process to that, which is probably that it's not authentic. This whatever it was that was achieved wasn't what I had wanted, and therefore I failed nonetheless.
Mm.
The for me, it sometimes recently, I'd say up until Tuesday, I mean, up until like realistically, just within the past couple of years, did I really realize that no, I'm actually able to produce something that somebody out there, God, what is wrong with them? That they like it. What the fuck is wrong with them? This is absolute shite. And everything else is just any other success that I've ever had has always been, well, it's not because of me. Yeah, yeah. Somebody else helped me out with that, and that's why. I mean that, yeah. Fuck.
This is actually a really good time to ask this question. This is for everybody. The next couple of questions I have are for everybody. It is, if you could give your imposter syndrome a voice, what would be the one thing that they would say to you the loudest?
If we were to give him the imposter syndrome a voice, what is it that it would say to me the loudest?
Yeah, what's the thing that comes up the loudest for you?
I will express it is incredible. Okay, so this is an irony for me. I bring characters to life with voice, and there's a lot that goes into that. I have no problem doing that. You ask me to do that for this thing, for that beast inside of me, I will admit it is terrifying to bring that to life right now. I could be jovial, but right now I find myself like stopped in my tracks to actually do it. And I know that you're not asking me to do a voice. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
It's the make it vocal, bring
Yeah.
it out loud so I can hear it. Oh shit. Somebody else take this.
I think mine is just somebody's already doing it.
Mm.
Ooh.
Because ideas don't stop. My brain doesn't stop.
Yeah.
I'm going 1,000 miles a minute, and I'm constantly creating and tearing down and creating and tearing down. Like that's been my entire life. And I don't have a problem burning something to the ground and building it back up again if it's, I've lost the need to be attached to the things. I can build it and burn it back. And build it back, but I think every time, I'm doing, there's something now I feel really passionate that needs to be out there in the world, and I'm starting to dive down and look at all these different pieces of it, and would this work, and are you interested? And it's like I need somebody else to say, yes, go do it, and it's okay if somebody else is doing it. Maybe this is going to be different. Maybe that, because I like to reach the one person. Sure, I want to make enough money to be able to just get on a plane and go to, Tahiti because that's what I want to do. But for me, the reason I put stuff out there is because it needs to come out. Like it's going to come out one way or another because it's not mine. It's a life of its own. And then the other part of it is I want to help one person at a time. because I've been in so many of the situations, but I've gotten myself out of it. So how can I help the one person who is just really struggling and can't see past what's right in front of them? They just need to get, past that one thing. But yet I've got this great idea that I wanna do and do it with many other people and get it out there into the world, but my brain is like, "Somebody's gotta be doing this already. Am I gonna create all this stuff and it's already out there, and is it not good enough? Is it" I know I have confidence in my ability, like, to create and to produce and to do the things, and it's yeah, it's the end result, and I think a lot of that is probably because how do we as a society base success? When am I actually successful? I've rebuilt my life 3 times now. I'm on time number 3, rebuilding my life. So, like, when can I stop? When can I relax and just play a game in the backyard instead of having to be rebuilding? I don't know.
All right, so mine's a narcissistic little shit. Mine, it tells me to do the work. It's it 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 it. Go on, sit down. Go ahead. I fucking dare you. Sit down. Try doing it. Nope, you misspelled that. Go back, repeat that. Nope, period belongs there. This is when I'm writing typically. If I'm drawing out a fantasy map, no, mountain wouldn't go there. Why not? Well, it would create a rain shadow. Now you're gonna have to build a desert. You said you didn't want a desert there. Don't put a fucking mountain there. What? And it's not an actual dialogue that I'm having because all of this is happening within usually a quarter of a second, and it'll be processed for about a couple of minutes after that, and then it feeds on itself after that. Once it has sunk its claws in and I am now beginning to question anything that I'm doing, it then I start feeling the fun being poked at me. I feel the like it seriously just starts taking the piss. I will comparison is a huge thing. I will find the best of whatever I am doing and then compare it against that and say, you will never achieve that. And I'm going, I read my shit. It's good. And this is the part where I start having a fight with myself over it. The sad thing is that if I even acknowledge its existence, it's already winning. In the moment, if I acknowledge its existence, I have to learn how to shut it out. And so I don't yet have a routine. The other thing is that if I like on my TTRPG campaign setting channel, Evandale, I used to run mapping streams or world development streams, and just today I put my foot down. I said, no, I'm going to start doing that again. I ultimately stopped them because I wasn't getting anything done. And it wasn't that I wasn't getting anything done. I was chatting with an incredible community of loving people who simply wanted community and they wanted to chat. But I had it in my head, no, it must be this, and I must accomplish this, and I have to do this. And then after a while, it just said, see, you never got it done, did you? Fuck. It has other tactics. I hate it.
Thank you for sharing that. That sounds like
Yeah, thank you for being so open. That sounded like a lot.
Yeah, especially the compounding of all of that information into an immediate like sensation is huge.
I tend to have a lot of things like Shannon. I tend to have a lot of things going on in my brain at any given time. just multiple projects, and it's every single project that I've never been able to complete. All of them are on my to-do list. Add on to that this notion that a single task, I've talked about this before, and I feel bad mentioning it again, but like even the task of, well, clean up the kitchen. And this isn't really imposter syndrome. This is more, I think, ADHD. I don't know. Fortunately,
Yep.
I'm going to a psychiatrist soon for an evaluation and potential diagnosis, and I've never been more excited in my life to actually put a freaking label to this thing. But
Yeah.
the notion of even cleaning up the kitchen is broken down into like a ridiculous amount of steps, and that's when that will then come up and go, you can't even clean the kitchen. I'm like, you're using me against me. I'm like, wow, I've never. Yeah. So, yep.
It's the expectation.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like. The expectation of the end result. Like, what does that end result have to be? And you get to decide what that is.
Yeah.
And you can change that every single minute. You can change it and make a new end result. You can put the mountain next to the desert. Who says that you can't have a mountain next to a desert in your world? That's this world's science.
Yeah, that's the beautiful logic behind it, right? It's always easy, and that's the part that it will then use. Because I'll start rationalizing with myself, and I'll just go, okay, I'm somebody who needed to latch on to reality when creating fantasy so that I could substantiate my choices, so that I can provide reasons for my choices. I always needed a backing. It was never a good idea to do it with originality. It was always, if you want to have, now listen to this bullshit. If you want to have 2 moons going around your planet, you're going to have to learn physics and astrophysics at that. You're going to have to work on Kepler's law and the 3-body problem. You're going to have to figure that out. And if you can't figure that out, there's no way that you can ever possibly do that, because you will never be able to teach yourself enough calculus to be able to get there. And it starts yelling. And it's so sure, the logic is there. Well, it's fantasy. A fucking deity said, done. It's done. Take a look at Tolkien. I was actually yelled at Reddit on one time when I was like, here's my map. And somebody actually was like,
Reddit.
you can't have rivers coming down on 2 sides of the mountain. And I'm sitting here like, what? What? And I go back to like a Tolkien's map. And I'm like, Tolkien, the guy who I grew up, reading and was undoubtedly inspired by and have since thankfully moved away from. But I take a look at it like, right next to fucking Mordor, he's got 2 rivers coming down on either side of it. You go correct J.R. Tolkien. So after a while, there has to be an acceptance that the voice that I hear, or I shouldn't ever say voice, because I don't. It's not like that. It hits me as a series of concepts of, man, the word negligence comes up, but it's not negligence, or at least not in this context, but it comes up that way. And I think, oh man, now I'm about to go down a rabbit hole here.
Do you need us to pull you back?
Let me collect my thoughts.
I'll go with you down the hole. I'll chase the bunny.
I need sleep. I can talk for 6 hours at a time. No, what I'm saying is, allow me to collect my thoughts, give somebody else a chance to speak.
No, we got you.
And yeah,
no problem. No problem.
Let me get my shit going.
You're good. You're good.
Chris, I would love to know if you're comfortable. If you're not comfortable sharing what your loud imposter syndrome sounds like, I would love to hear a generalization of what your experience is in like the in the clinical sense of what is the overall BBEG of imposter syndrome.
I think it goes through. Well, for mine, it's the voice of, you don't know enough to help this person.
Oh,
And that's with a Oh yeah, it's deep with a lot of clients. It's really deep. I mean,
Yep.
I've been to got my bachelor's, got my master's, working on getting my license, and it still can be quite the BBEG. Um, Even though I have this degree, and I think the reason why it happens like that is because every case is different. No person is the same. No problem is the same that comes into the door. There might be some similarities, but everyone is so different. And I always ask myself that sometimes when it comes to a hard case, am I the right person? Can I, am I going to be able to help them? Um, it's and that's there's a fine line sometimes between I'm going to be a little interesting between listening to that that voice because sometimes it's not an imposter. Sometimes it's actually saying this might be a little bit more than you can chew right now.
Uh,
Like a
So
helper, kind of.
that, and as a therapist, we have an ethics where you need to be well versed or at least proficient enough to be able to help someone at least.
Hmm.
And if you're not at the time, if you're not, you might be doing a little bit more harm than good sometimes because you're not well versed in that area. Um, and so sometimes the little voice can be helpful. I'm not going to say all the time. It's when I find that it's more negative and derogatory towards yourself. That's when it's more of that's the hindrance. That's the imposter syndrome telling you to not do something because you may not feel like you could be great at it. So there it can be it's a very fine line between imposter and a voice of caution.
is
And
it, to your knowledge, is it born out of that part of us that for whatever reason simply wants to protect us?
I would say, yeah, there's something that definitely that can be something that the reason that it wants to protect you is you have been down this road before. You've been hurt before.
Yeah.
Do you want to be hurt again? Do you want to? Because it could happen.
Oh.
And now, what is that the voice of caution, or is that a voice of don't do it because you're just gonna fail? So, like I said, there's a fine line between the two, where it's a caution, be careful about that. Because with mine, it's be careful. If you don't know enough, don't be afraid to be like, hey, I may not be able to help you. I need to, I need to get you to another therapist that might do better than I would at this. And so it's a fine line for some therapists because it's like, ooh, do I want to try and see what happens, or do I just want to kind of put them out to a new therapist? It's a hard one to understand sometimes, just because how do we know which voice to listen to at times? Do we
And then if
want
you're
because
spiritual like me, you got other voices coming in too. That's a whole different
definitely,
one.
yeah. But it's hard sometimes, and I constantly have that feeling at times. I'm like, ooh, am I the best therapist for them right now? One thing that I do personally, and it's getting a little deep, but when it comes
Oh, we're
to
already there.
when it comes to being assigned to be a therapist for women, I'm very, very mindful about what happens when they talk to me about some of the problems they have. I'm like, ooh, okay, that's really deep. And at the end of my assessment, I always ask to each of my clients, like, hey, now that we've had an hour together, you've kind of seen who I am a little bit and how I kind of work a little bit. Are you willing to work with me because I'm a man? And if you don't feel comfortable, that's okay. I am not hurt by that. That is, that's something that you need to. You don't want that. That's fine. in order for therapy to work, people need to be comfortable.
Yeah.
And so if you're not comfortable with a male therapist, which is okay, that's okay to have a female therapist. It's okay to be like, I'd rather have a female therapist because they understand me and what I'm going through, and some of my experience is better than a male would. Also, some people are going through trauma still, and they're still going through, hey, men are bad. You're a man, and I can't trust you, and so I can't work with you. Which is then where I'm like, that's okay. That's when the imposter syndrome is dead quiet, because I want to be mindful for my clients.
Yep.
And so putting them first in that area of like, are you comfortable with me being your therapist? And then it's a yes or no. I hope that's a roundabout way of answering that question, but I think that I have it almost every day, depending on the client, depending on the problem that's bringing them in, and my scope of expertise on that matter that they need.
Do SJ and Shannon, what is the frequency of your imposter syndrome? Is it also every day or pretty near that?
No. Yeah, no, mine is not. I did relate to the you don't know enough though. So that's probably constant, but it doesn't weigh me down. Like I'm not thinking, oh, I can't do this because I don't know enough. Like, but every time I go to put a new something out into the world, like, okay, here's this thing, come join me when I, host this event, or I've got this class I'm gonna run, or I'm gonna put this other thing on, or whatever. Um, yeah, I think there's always a part of me that's like, why? Why are you coming to me? Like I don't know, like I know I can help people and I know I do, and um and it's always a good experience, in it. But I think there's this part of us, like intrinsic, that is just like the humanness in us, where we just, I don't know, we're still like that little kid a little bit inside somewhere. And
Yeah.
so it just depends on when that's going to come out. And, I mean, I do the same thing. I'm the reason why there's a master in front of my master certified coach is because I think I have 9 of them now, where I went in and I did like, because I wanted to focus on a certain specific area. And I do a lot of therapeutic art. So like I did a specific coaching and training on that. And, so it's like, okay, maybe this is not enough. Let me go get the new thing. I'm, moments away from my astrology certification, right? Like I did I need to have an astrology certification to do all the witchy shit that I do? No. But do I feel better that I'm gonna have an astrology certification? Sure. So where does that come from? Where did we get this need to, to do all that? And it's funny, you mentioned like trust, and I think really like that's where it that's where it falls. Do you trust yourself? And if you don't feel enough trust in you, and this all goes back to, I mean, we can get back into like, how you were raised affects, your first 5 years are going to have massive impact on the rest of your life. And then 5 to 18 are gonna, yeah, that's a whole nother level. And did you have a trauma in your life? Did somebody leave you? Did somebody tell you that what you're doing is not good enough? Like there's so many things that people do that get in your head. I do an exercise with people when I'm coaching where and you may have heard of it too, but I essentially use a table to demonstrate the stability of an idea, where I have people build up legs underneath the table, as many as they need, until they feel like that table is not going to fall down, and it's a whole process of, writing things down and just coming to terms. So much of what we're talking about is really just getting into what I call the shadowy side of ourselves, where we like open up the door, we let the light in there, we poke around a little bit, we start, messing with the stuff that's uncomfortable for us to deal with. And then we face it. And and I, like I say, I use a lot of art to do that, and a lot of journaling and writing. But I think the nature of us as humans is that we're going to go through our entire existence and we're still going to have facets of this, because there's still a world out there that is telling us a whole bunch of things to make us not feel good about who we are and what we're doing and how we're doing it. So you have to really spend a lot of time, I think, establishing that strong foundation of self, and just do a lot of work on you. And it's a lot of personal growth kind of stuff. And but I think it really just comes down to trust. You have to trust yourself enough that you can quiet down the voices that tell you that you shouldn't have not to use their example again, but that you shouldn't have a desert next to a mountain. Just trust in yourself. And then the other alternative, I like to, I laugh, I use humor and everything, for a lot. I mean, the day that I had 2 police officers at my door, I was telling them jokes in my shock. I was telling them stories about Zach, and I was telling them jokes. And I think that is a very underappreciated quality in humans. We make people feel bad for laughing at stuff that is scary or uncomfortable or whatever, but I think that's part of who we are as humans. We need that to lighten it up. I would, next time the mountain is, yelling at you, make funny faces on the mountain, turn it into something else, make the mountain a volcano, whatever. But just, I think it's that little, you've got to access that little kid that's inside you and bring that because little kids don't give a shit. They're going to tell you whatever they want. They're going to do whatever they want. They're going to take whatever they want. They're going to lie about shit. They're going to do whatever, they don't care, because they're confidence. They're really confident, so if we can harness that little kid in ourselves and bring that out more and get that on the outside, I mean, look at us. We're a bunch of grown-ass adults playing games, right? That's what we're all doing.
Yeah.
Let's not take ourselves so seriously. We're a bunch of grown-ass adults playing games.
What about us?
The-
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, okay. What Shannon said kind of was segues into one of the questions that I know you wanted to ask, Erin. So I was going to just kind of go with that one, which is you talked a lot about coping, Shannon, and how can we cope with some of this sometimes? Something that you guys didn't see. Me and Steve were talking about, like, I do this routine and I feel better when I drink water. I do this. Those are some going to be like 9 out of 10 times your therapist is going to tell you to do some stuff like that. Just breathe. Being able to breathe, because once you're breathing, you're allowing your brain to think as you get oxygen into it. You're like, okay, let's think this through. Actually, it helps you kind of reset and regulate yourself. Because sometimes when we're so caught up in our imposter syndrome, we're dysregulated. We've kind of run. Sorry, Steve.
No, please don't
I'm giving you
apologize for
virtual
speaking
hugs,
so much
Steve.
damn truth right now. You're fine.
Yeah, virtual hugs all around.
We're dysregulated. We're dysregulated. We're not thinking clearly at times. We're so dysregulated that breathing in water, drinking water are going to help you regulate. Another thing that I was thinking about as I was thinking about this podcast, because I've known about this for a while and I've been thinking a lot about this, just because I find it really fascinating and fun to talk about. Another thing that Steve said, you compared yourself, this is before the show, but comparing yourself kind of negatively, like, I can't do that again. The other challenge is to compare yourself positively.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at where you looking at where you were to where you are. That's a huge therapeutic skill, and also a great way for you to compare yourself. If you didn't make it from A to B at this point or not enough, guess what? You still made progress to B. There is still progress.
Yeah.
Does not take away from, hey, I didn't get it, so all my work is for nothing. So comparing yourself, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I apologize. I had wanted to answer the previous question, then touch on that if I may, but please finish your point.
But it's comparing yourself in a positive light. Being able to say, I've made progress.
Yeah.
I've come further from where I was to where I am now. I mean, I use that all the time in my therapy because it's a great way for them to kind of get a baseline of where they're at. Saying, once you started therapy, let's talk about who you were before therapy. What are some changes that you were from then to now? And when they're able to kind of look back and say, oh my goodness, I have changed so much. Like, yep, you have. And just being kind of a second voice to that change, because being able to be a witness and saying, hey, you have. I've been here. You've reported to me. We've talked about it. That's a great way.
Yeah. Do I experience imposter syndrome all the time or just some of the time? I do not experience it all the time. And that is there are days when, okay, so I routinely sleep. I'd like to think that I routinely sleep about 5 to 6.5 hours if I'm lucky. However, there are those days when I will go through a series of maybe 3-4 hours, and this is just that late night, the doom scrolling on TikTok. Like, fuck you, TikTok. And I stay up until like a very long time. And then, morning comes and I'm like, oh shit. So when I go through those periods, there will be about 3 or 4 days of that. And then boom, I get a sleep-in fest. And then when I wake up, I can't, I'm like, the funny thing is that it doesn't, the assertion that I'm going to get something done is no longer today I have I'm going to get these things done and here's how I'm going to do it. The usual bullshit gets completely wiped away for that moment. And then I sit down and I get into my zone, and I feel like my entire life has just been one big writer's block. And then I have that one moment in the zone, and whether it is I'm ripping out auditions, I'm writing something, I'm translating something to some game system, creating a new world, whatever. I will get 3 t-shirt designs in 1 hour. Who does? So it is possible. The day after that, there's hell to pay. And I'm not going to repeat it, but I've already described what that kind of hell is, what it looks like. You touched on compare yourself to others. And in terms of success, see how your success looks, or don't compare yourself to others. Measure your progress, look back on your progress and see something. Here's a little trick I learned. If I continue to say something long enough, it's going to rewrite my brain. And for a number of years, 8 seasons or so, I had built up a membership and created an 11th century Viking age historical reenactment camp. And we engaged in amateur experimental archaeology. And I didn't know that I was going to become a storyteller, like a professional storyteller. So I started delivering little bits. People will come up to the fence and they look inside the village, and we're all working. Like, we're all teaching ourselves crafts that, some of which is still being practiced today, but most of which are forgotten. And we go through this process of learning and teaching and growing. And as the owner operator of this venture, I encourage every single one of the members, anywhere between 20 and 40 on any given year. And everyone was their passions were guiding them. They're like, oh my God, I didn't know that I could swing an axe and like hew a beam out of a tree. And they're walking away with life skills. The village eventually got the reputation of being the place that people wanted to go to in the event of a zombie apocalypse because we had all the axes. So it was cool to be in an environment where I got to see other people thriving, other people who don't have the same kind of, weirdness going on inside my head. So that was one thing that began to help me. And those little, hey, I'm talking to somebody who's watching what it is that we're doing, and I'm educating them on what we're doing because I'm performing a service for them. There's never a moment where I feel like I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm also backed by science. And this is, it's in the archaeological record. This is what we have found. So I never quite felt like I was speaking as a point of authority, but rather repeating that which I had learned after I vetted the source material, which was incredibly important for us. But then after a while, I started telling stories, and we had a clearing that allowed us to, or allowed me to sit down with about 30, 40 people at a given time. And I started telling them things about the Eddas, which are like the old Viking Age stories about the gods and the heroes, etc., and the sagas, which are primarily from Iceland. And the sagas really go into what life was like back then and how they viewed things. And so there were a couple of takeaways from this that talk about progress and acknowledging your own progress. And I ended up tricking myself into developing this as a technique for myself. The notion that we're all going to die. This is going to be a trigger warning for this. We're all going to die at some point. Now we're out here in the forest, okay? This is a Renaissance fair I'm at. We're in the middle of a forest. Hey, welcome back. And there is dirt on the ground. And people are like, I was like, you are surrounded by death right now. And they're like, what are you talking about? I was like, I'm going to put you into the mindset of an 11th century villager. Walk with me on this quick. I'm not going to give you guys the whole spiel. That's way outside the scope of this. But imagine for a second that you are in the 11th century in a really chilly land and survival is hard. What kind of mindset are you going to adopt so that you can continue to live and to thrive? One is by understanding your place in it all. What is under your feet? And people are like, dirt. I'm like, what's dirt? Dead organic material. Plants, animals, maybe some humans, right? It's all dead. What are those little brown things collecting down around the ground? Well, those are dead leaves. Dead leaves. Very good. What's this thing laying down on the ground? It looks like a log. What is it? Well, it's a log. Right. A dead tree. What's your clothing made out of? Cotton? Dead plant. What's your leather? Dead moo-moo. And people were like, what the hell's going on? I was like, yeah, you are literally surrounded by death. And so they had a saying back then that really kind of kept things going. And this is one of the techniques that I ended up adopting to recognize my own progress. Essentially, it was everything around you is going to die, but one thing never will, and that's the reputation of a good life lived. Because we always talk about people, after they're dead, and we remember them and we remember their lives. Why? Because of the actions that they did. And in the lecture, I'm telling people, what's the difference between you and them? Do they have skin? They have bones? They have muscle? They have blood? They have organs? Some of them had horrendous diseases. That didn't stop them. What's the difference between us and them? And now the children in the audience, this was one of the transformative moments for me, was taking a look at the kids who were sitting next to the parents, and the parents are going like this, listen up. And that to me was one of the first recognitions that I was doing something proper, because I had received an outside validation. The parents were directing their children to listen to me, because now I was talking about what's it like to be in a job, what's it like to go through school, and what's it like to fail. And that's when it hit me. If you think you have made no progress, look where you started. Look where you are now. Look at your string of failures. And Shannon, this is to your earlier point. rewrite what a failure is into a small measure of success. You only need to do one thing. You have one job when it comes to fail. Fail more and learn from it. And the more you learn, now you're getting practice. And then all of a sudden you become better at it. Okay, so that's one coping mechanism that I ended up developing. I turned failure into a learning thing. So now I absolutely love failing. But what happens if I can't even do the work? Before was mentioned, trust yourself. I'd love to touch on that if I can. Trusting yourself is not the problem for me. I do trust myself once I'm able to create. It's the notion that I am unable to do that. And this may step outside of imposter syndrome. It may deal with like ADHD or what have you. And again, that is something for another discussion. But when it comes down to imposter syndrome, when I begin taking a look at what it is that I'm doing, and then I'm rewriting and I'm rewriting and I'm rewriting, I can't trust myself because I haven't yet achieved the level of perfection that I am trying to strive for. And the last point was, I'll touch on this. It's the comparison to others or seeing or trying to see where I forget if this was it. My memory is for absolute crap, so I apologize.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
What's that?
Comparison is the thief of joy.
That's brilliant. I love that. Thank you for that. I had the ability to work with several very well established and very well known people in the entertainment industry. And when I work with these people, I usually work with them for 2 to 4 days at a time, right around October, if they come to New York Comic Con. And while I'm there to do a very specific job, so I don't engage them on any of my levels, but through casual conversation behind the scenes, they discover some of the things that I do. When one of them on day 4, I was with this guy on day 4, when one of them on day 4 said, "Hey, I know that you're into voice," he was a voice actor. "I know that you're into voice acting. I'm going to tell you this right now. I've seen you work just in the past 4 days. You are funny. You have a good rapport. You people like working with you. You're going to make it, and you're going to succeed faster than most other people will. Please understand, voice acting is, I dare say that it is the most competitive subset of the most competitive industry, which is entertainment. And listening to this guy tell me that, and every now and then we continue to chat, what choice do I have? What part, there comes a point of rationalization or rationale starts taking the fore, and as bad as it can be for me, an inability to produce anything at times because whatever I do is just never going to be good enough. That person has done it and is known worldwide. What right do I have to believe that this person doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about? And then another one, and then another, and then another. I think that is the only reason why I ended up actually succeeding to even a slight degree. But there are days still when I can't do my job as a VA. Voice actor's job is to audition, not to book the job. It is to audition. Because if you will go batshit crazy thinking, "Oh my God, I'm never getting work." No one ever gets work. 98% of your auditions are not going to be work. So your real job, you don't ever get paid for. So you have to accept that your job is to audition. And take a look at the audition listings or having something sent out to me by an agent or what have you. I'm like, I can't. I can't. When I couldn't walk into the booth anymore, when I was standing there in front of my booth, like, why can't I cross this threshold? It's actually stopping me from walking in to this freaking threshold. I built this booth. There's all the best equipment in there, just waiting for me, which is also something else. I ended up surrounding myself with some of the best equipment that you can ever buy in the industry. I had a good paying job at the time of my 9 to 5 because that's what I thought was necessary. It had nothing to do with my talent. And I wasted so much damn money on that. Sometimes comparison, like, well, fuck, you said it. It is.
That didn't come from me, but it's one that I have adopted
It's
over the
brilliant.
years. Yeah.
I still give you credit for teaching it to me. It's brilliant and it's fucking amazing. So yeah, I will tell anybody out there right now. I'm reading the comments in here. Don't compare yourself to me.
I can't see the comments.
That's okay.
No,
Tell me
We've
if
been
there's anything
collecting.
good.
We've been
Also,
collecting questions.
finish. Oh, good. Also, finish this sentence. Good enough for what?
Oh, for anything. Anything. That's I think that's the most insidious part of it all. If there was a direction in which I can head to kind of trick myself into, well, maybe I can improve in this one little aspect of whatever it is that I'm trying to do. No, it's not that. I'm never good enough for anything. Of course, rationally, I'm not good enough for myself because of this false notion of, my measure of success is impossible. And it holds yourself to this fictitious account of what success is. We understand that logically.
What if there is no success? What if
Yeah.
we're just here to enjoy life and we're fucking it up
Exactly. Yep.
because we're
Exactly.
all trying to get success?
That's that. I feel bad for monopolizing airtime. So I teach
Oh, this
classes.
is a great conversation. Don't feel bad. See, what are you doing? See, you're being an imposter on the Imposter Syndrome panel. Stop.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. True. So I taught improvisation for 7 years, and what I ended up learning from that, it was some incredibly valuable lessons. And it all relates to imposter syndrome. One of them that see, the funny thing is that I can give great advice, but I don't fucking follow it myself. One
Well,
of the
there you
lessons
go. There's the rub for all of us.
Oh, yeah.
That-
It's
It's
a
huge.
lot
It
easier.
sucks.
Yeah, it's a lot easier.
That's a therapist's job.
What's that?
Well, that's all I do is like, hey, let's try doing this. Next week, I didn't do it.
So
okay.
Here's something for you. This is pertaining. So I'm gonna plug something because it's an inappropriate. You know what? Fuck it. I'm not gonna plug it. But anyway, the point is that I ended up developing. No, because it's not the appropriate time. I ended up developing a course that taught other people. Really, really short. There were a lot of people that wanted to get in and become part of a very large street cast. And in order to do that, they needed a certain skill set. So they go through your usual cow call down in New York City. And many times, it's like, all right, what's your monologue? And, and people are looking, while the actor is delivering the monologue, we're all looking at the headshots and the resumes, and we're kind of half listening. And unfortunately, folks, if you're an actor, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And then your resume or headshot gets put into a certain pile. I'm the director at the other end of the table. And I was looking at that and I'm going, no, I see a spark. So much of my ability to notice what other people are capable of comes from a desire for me to be recognized as having that same capability. So in a weird sort of reverse projection, I ended up developing, love this shit, a cast that for a show that's been around 41, 42 seasons now, years, we call them seasons in the Renaissance fair industry. For a show that's been around 42 years, during those 7, we end up, and these people bust their ass. They end up putting together a cast out of the rejects of that no pile. I pulled them aside and I started asking them certain questions, got them into doing a little bit of an improv routine, and then they joined the cast. I selected them. They were volunteers. They wanted to learn. They walked up to the door, and every single one of them had a major insecurity that held them back by their own admittance, not my diagnosis. I'm not qualified for that. But the process that they ended up going through, 2-time award winning, best street cast on the national level. These people, I can't even tell you what it's like to be able to sit in the back and just watch people grow in front of your eyes when somebody else, and I know that this is me, that has always wanted to be able to do that. When you can watch somebody who said, I can't do that, all of a sudden do something so magnificent, you're like, why can't the world see you right now? Well, can you do this for the rest of your life? Do you understand how good you are at it? And I know that so much of that is just geared towards me. But holy shit, some of the greatest validation I ever received was I got a letter once. It was from one of my former students. And she came back, she moved on to college. And from there, she went into her career. And many years later, she wrote me and told me that those classes taught her how to view things outside of the box and how to approach them on a level that superseded anything learned in university, because you're not, you hit on this, Shannon, before, where we may be adults, but we never ever should give up on imagination. It is the most powerful thing we have. And to limit yourself and your creativity is the greatest goddamn thief of all. You are literally preventing yourself from having the human experience, which is why I so fiercely defended the notion that, no, I may be 57, but I be damned if I'm going to give up. And yet, every day, it sucks. It sucks a lot, and the best that I can do to cope from it is to simply help others however I can. So I want to put together a class for gamers. I'm an actor. I have certain skills. And I can help other people come out of their shell. And if they want to role play around a table in their favorite game, and they want to embrace a character, don the armor of one and become someone else, motherfucker, I got you, but it's not me that's going to be doing the work. I just wish I had that. And I think that is the most raw I've ever been, and fuck, it's on stream. So here we are.
I see
I
you,
enjoyed
and
it.
I honor you.
Anyway, thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. I see you,
No,
and I honor you.
thank you.
I want to I have these questions, these pointed questions for each of you that I was going to open up for like responses after, but I want to just ask for the sake of time, because we do have audience questions as well. I'm going to ask each of you a question that's more like specific to your experience. And yeah, so I'm going to start with, we'll give SJ, we'll give him a little bit of a break. And of course, if you all need water or to take a break, this is a very heavy subject, so please, like, feel free to step away. So I'll start with Chris, though. What sort of grounding, or understanding this isn't like giving therapy advice, but what sort of grounding techniques do you recommend for, or tips do you recommend for folks who are in the middle of it, like in the thick of imposter syndrome? What sort of things have you felt have really been constructive in working through that?
I think the first thing to do is take a quick break and stop, because if it's that intense, you're probably dysregulated, like I've said. So get some water, get a snack, take some breaths. Just try to and it's hard to say because it's like, oh, but I'm in the moment. But being able to relax at the moment, to allow your brain to think and like, wait, hold up, whoa, what's going on here? Allowing you that opportunity for you to kind of reset and regulate yourself again, because when we're dysregulated, we do things that are not who we are. We'll be doing some things like, that's not who I am. And then not only do you think about that, you then have to some will regret that. Some will be like, oh crap. And they beat themselves up again for that silly mistake. And that they hang it over themselves like a horrible badge of honor.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're not being able to regulate themselves. So my thing would be to take time, step back, take a quick 5-minute, 10-minute break, grab a snack, grab water, breathe. Those would be my first thing. Because right now, your brain is not in the right mindset to try to cope with it.
Mm-hmm.
You need to kind of bring yourself back down to be able to cope with what's going on around you.
Right.
And so that will be the one thing. And I know that, like Steve and everyone's talked about it a little bit, comparing yourself in a good way, telling your positive affirmations. There's another marriage and family therapist named Gottman. If anyone's with that, he
love
uses the
him.
term he uses the term love bank. And so I'm going to apply it more towards yourself.
What was that?
Love bank.
Love bank. Thank you.
Love bank. If you say if you say anything negative about yourself, you need to say 3 or 5 positive things to equal out those negative things that you talked about. So being able to, you can do that with your spouse, you can do it with, but we're doing for yourself right now. Say 5 things to replenish that kind of self-negative talk that you just did. So that way you continue to build up yourself. Because if we let the little imposter voice win, for me, I'm not sure if anyone, but we tend to be a little bit more negative at times.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to be more, I would say, a little bit more depressed, more anxious about the future, about the choices we make. So telling yourself positive affirmations helps to build yourself. And tell you have to. Here's another hard thing. You have to believe it too. Because if you don't, then you can easily just tear it down. It's like, wasn't true in the first place. So they need to be believable. Like true compliments about yourself. And so I'm going to go on Steve real quick. I wish I had known you years before so I could see where your progress was in Elvendale, so I can give you a buttload of compliments. Because what I've seen so far from your world creating, it's phenomenal. It is absolutely astonishing, the building that you're creating. Because how I think about it, you're doing it for yourself, but you're also doing it for more people. You're doing it for other people. You're being very selfless right now. And I think that's a very admirable quality. So that I see in you right now. I also see that you're very tender and kind.
I'm Gen X. Those 2 words don't exist.
No, nope. Sorry to negate that, but you are so kind and gentle from personal experience.
Gen X gets a bad rap.
Gen X is awesome, but we're not gonna go there.
Don't get me started on the whole Gen X thing.
Yeah,
Thank you. For
it's who you are as a person. Those are some things that I can see in you off the things that I have seen from you. You have a lot more positive qualities about your world creating than I think you do negatives, to be honest. there's a lot more positives that I think sometimes you don't give yourself credit for, that you are creating right here, which takes so much.
The world was created because I didn't fit in, and oh my God, this is turning into okay. I'm not.
We love you, Steve.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not. It's like when Erin said, "Hey, you want to be the case study?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. I don't hide anything. I gladly talk about stuff. I have no problem with that." Meanwhile, I'm just like, "I need Kleenex."
Oh.
The world, doing it for yourself. Yeah, man. The world was initially created because I wanted to know where that dungeon was, and then it eventually became a world. But what I ended up discovering, though, is that in that world, I was accepted. I was a theater kid in the '80s. I'm not accepted anywhere unless it's by other theater kids. So it was simply a place where I could be. I always fashioned myself or fancied myself as an extrovert for a long time, because if it wasn't Evandale that I was creating, it was a community of some kind. So I've always been a community builder. The irony of that is that ended up distancing me more from my fellow human, because now I'm the person in charge. I'm not one of them. I can't relate to them on the same level. And I mean, I want to, but that's not how they see me. So it's kind of like, oh, here comes the boss. It's like, what the fuck? No, it's a D&D club, the boss. What the fuck you? And so, yeah, a lot of it was just trying to create literal worlds, creating a community, creating something fictional, creating whatever. I never really ended up developing the tools to be able to do that, but I did become good at world building. So yeah, there are a couple things that I am really good at. Most everything else, oh my God, I just suck monkey balls. Oh God, it's so bad. But I'm proud of those things when I have the opportunity to actually exercise it. So I really appreciate your words. They do mean a lot. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. And I think I'm say this little bit, and then I'll should send it over to Shannon, because I feel like me and Steve have talked quite a bit.
It's okay. I'm trying really, really hard not to forget the shit that I want to say.
You're good.
So
be smart to write it down, but I didn't. So keep going.
So the thing that I really impressed that Steve kind of talked about was the ability and opportunity that I had to be able to do D&D for my therapy kids. Because I think I say go for it, hardcore with your classes, go for it. I'll tell some anecdotes about it. So I first was able to do this by I was at one agency before, and just brand new, was still kind of intern and didn't have my associates or masters yet, but I was interning. And the person in charge of the therapy agency kind of cornered me one day, and she's like, "Hey, you're a nerd, right?" I was like, "That's one way of putting it, but sure, why not? Let's go with that." And she said, "How would you feel about putting on a therapy group, but using like something like that?" I was like, "Well, I could try doing something with Dungeons and Dragons." And she's like, "Oh, what?" She got really excited, and that's how it was somewhat born. And so I started off with about 3 clients, and it was great. Sadly, that agency closed down, and so the one that I'm with now, I wanted to take it with me, and I wanted to kind of tease to see if maybe I could kind of pull it off, because I work with the population that I work with is kids in the foster system. So with that, who are in state custody right now, who are in different phones and things of that nature. And so I go to the person who owns this therapy agency that I'm with right now, and I said, "Would you be willing to have me do a group therapy?" And he's like, "What would you do?" And I said, oh, I'd be using a game, it'd be Dungeons and Dragons, and I would help it to improve communication skills and emotional skill building. And he's like, stop, I love it, do it now. I want this right here for my agency. I want it right now. And so he was very adamant about it, and I got it working. And I have six clients right now that I'm working with. And the two that I'm focused three, but the two that have been huge success. I had one client who just very, very shy, gets her anxious to talk among people. But she loves Baldur's Gate. She loves the D&D world. I have a young man who's like, I've never played this before. I want to see what happens. Lo and behold, we did Minds of Fendelver. We finished that. And we come to find out he has a whole bunch of leader qualities that he never knew that he had that we talked about in an individual. And then she has been role playing like crazy. She had one idea, which is, so I'll do some D&D stuff. It's really insane. I'm not sure if I allowed it because it was the rule of cool, but I'm sure it works. And they were both doing it together. He was a psionic knight, and she was a turtle cleric. And it was a random encounter. They were ambushed on the road by hobgoblins, and they had pinned them down because I was having the hobgoblins shoot arrows at their carriage because they had crazy money and they bought a carriage for some reason. And they were trying what do we do? We're getting shot at. And she goes, hey, can you use your telekinesis to throw me? He's like, what? And he's like, yeah, can you, because turtles have this ability to kind of tuck in their shells. And he's like, can you throw me? He's like, well, I can lift about 500 pounds as a dragonborn, but I'm doing it telekinesis wise. And they looked at me like, can we do this? And I was like, yes, yes, you can. I want to see what happens.
Right answer.
So she rolled. She got 19, which got to an unnatural 20. I was like, okay, now I have to figure out how to deal turtle damage because they're in your shell and you get hit. But the story is she would never have done that before, and he was able to be a leader that he needed to be. And so this has been a great way of being able to validate those who need this. So I say, Steve, go for it, because there are people who are going to need this, who are going to benefit from you being able to help them get out of their shell, being able to help them communicate better, help them to create bonds with people around the table. Even if it's for a campaign, it still creates a bond, and more importantly, they feel safe.
Okay.
I'm going to pivot just a little bit over to, because we have about 15 more minutes left. So I'm going to ask Shannon the same question in a different way. And then after that,
hold on.
Go ahead.
Hold on. Let me just touch on this before, and I'll be quick. So I just wanted to, I didn't get to respond after Steve went before. So
Sorry.
I just wanted to notice that, no, that's fine. I just meant I didn't want to forget. I just wanted to kind of share that the main thing that I feel like that came across for me, you kept saying, that it was about you, but it wasn't about you. What you were doing was eliciting joy in other people. You were feeling good about yourself because you were seeing other people come to their potential and feel joy with themselves. And so it wasn't just because you were in charge of making that happen. That's what we all should be doing as humans. We should be walking around helping people to be joyful in their own space and doing the
Be
things
nice.
that they love to do. And just because you did that as a job and you experience joy from it doesn't mean that was a selfish act. I think that's exactly what we're supposed to be doing, is going out into the world and helping other people feel happy, and that in turn helps us feel happy. I commend you for it. I think it's a beautiful thing.
Thank you.
And then the other thing I just wanted to say too is, both of you touched on acceptance, and I think that's really what all of this boils down to for me, is that we are the 5-year-old kid going, "Look, look, 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 watch me do this, watch me do this." We're still that 5-year-old kid, and we all just wanna be playing in the sandbox and having fun and doing the things, and for somebody else to be going, "Oh yeah, that looks so cool." Like, you're creating these, things in your head. It's the same thing. Like, I write, I create art, I'm a storyteller as well, and so, like, it comes out, like, I have to create the things and I have to put it out there. But when I put it out there, that's not enough. I've created it, and then I need somebody to go, "This is cool." And that's all we are, is we're a bunch of geeky nerds who are waiting for somebody to go, "This is cool."
Yeah.
Like, and that's okay. Like, so I think we all, like, to get a little bit out of that imposter side, like, we all need our own little geeky nerd inside ourselves that's gonna basically be like, you need to crush this. You're doing fine." Like, we're out here enjoying life, honoring that little kid inside, and it's okay, to need somebody else to say, "Yeah, this is cool. I like it." Like, it's that's I don't think that's imposter syndrome. I think that's just being human, that part of it.
Mm, yeah. I to touch on your specialization. I would love to hear so we got some grounding techniques from
I can add
a
to that if you want.
yeah, from a therapy side. I would love to hear. There's a beautiful intersection with the gaming space and creative space and the magic culture. I would love to hear
Mhm.
some sort of spiritual grounding techniques in the face of imposter syndrome for folks who really resonate with that.
Yeah, sure. Well, we talked about it a little bit before. You mentioned breathing, and breathing is huge. I mean, everything centers with the breath. It starts there. You can't be anything else if you can't be in your own skin, and you have to start with doing that. And even if you just take a few slow, deep breaths and really notice, what's going on in your body, feeling and being centered in that space, even if you start with that. But you can just go on YouTube. There's a million different things out there where you can get nice meditations and people will guide you through. There's plenty of stuff out there. And for me, I think it's because the I'm gonna use imposter syndrome doesn't hit me like a ton of bricks, so I'm gonna associate this answer with things that do, because I'll get um, anxiety that will come out of nowhere, and take hold, and a lot of times it'll be something where I'm in public and like I had my first panic attack after Zach died because I something triggered me in that space, right? So I'm going to go to like those kind of things to give this answer, but I think this applies for anything where you do not feel centered and whole, right? It's all of it. Um so finding that breath and being in that space, but even just st- stopping what you're doing and focusing on a very singular point. If you're in a place where you can focus on something that like you get a lot out of, so like for example, if you're home and you can look out your window and there's like trees and animals and stuff out there that help you center, that's meditation. If you can look out the window and give yourself 5 minutes to just really focus, and it's like hyper focus, hyper hyper focusing, but I'm not saying it right, but where you go in and you can just really look at the tree. And when you start looking at the tree, look at what type of branches it has, what types of leaves it has, count the leaves, like just take you into a space where you're really centering in. And you can do that. And then it's called EFT is another tool that gets utilized. And I always forget what the tapping is, what it's commonly known for, but there's like a whole thing that you do where you use affirmations and you tap along with it. That's another thing you can do on YouTube. I highly recommend that. I have in our, I didn't talk much about it, but in our Bring Joy Forward community, we have a Facebook group, and in that Facebook group, every Tuesday, one of our holistic professionals does tapping every Tuesday, walks people through that. It's just a little bit of a grounding for me, also because like I said, I'm very spiritual, so I will check in. I will go inside. I will ask for spiritual guidance. My practices are more pagan. I am not a shaman, but I do shamanistic practices as well, and Reiki healing and things like that as well. So for me, I do that, but I also have, I have an altar that um, is really almost everything that I've said and everything I'm sure that people will say, they're mindfulness practices is what we're
Right.
talking about.
Mhm.
They are all things that are taking you into a space where you are being intentional and mindful about what you're doing. You're bringing yourself into the present moment and you're doing very specific activities. I pull tarot cards, and do that. I do a lot of journaling, and I do different forms of divination and stuff like that as well. Um, I also, I work with spells and crystals and all that kind of stuff as well. But for in the moment kind of stuff, I have a black crystal I'll pull out of my, put all in my pocket, because if I'm anywhere, there's a crystal somewhere within reach for me. And and they, if you learn about them, you learn about different the different types. So I have very specific ones that I'll pull out for that. But it doesn't have to be a crystal. Like, I'm still the 5-year-old kid who walks on the beach and picks up rocks and sticks.
Mhm.
If you get in my car right now, I guarantee you will find a rock, a stick, and a rubber ball somewhere in my car. Like, and that's it's that. It's take yourself back to the simplicity. Like, we are so overcomplicated. Society's throwing things at you every 2 seconds. Like, you're getting notifications and beeps and dings, and just simplify. If you're in a space where you're just getting all this stuff coming in and you can't get back, grab a piece of paper and write down absolutely everything that you did that day. And it counts. If you got out of bed, it counts. If you brushed your teeth, it counts. If you took a shower, it counts. Every single thing that you did, write it down. And
Mm.
then after you write it down, put a check mark next to it or put a crossover in it, because you're going to get some serotonin when you do that. Just cross it out, put the check mark, right? Because all we're doing is we're building ourselves up, because it's heavy out there. This was a heavy podcast
Mhm.
or episode or show or whatever it is that series,
Yeah.
whatever we're calling this thing that we're on. This was heavy, right? But this is where the shit happens.
Wow.
You have to get heavy. All the good stuff happens in the shadows. You got to get in there, poke around with the light and mess around. But you don't stay there. Don't live
Mhm.
there. Get the fuck out. Go somewhere else. It is heavy in the shadows. You got to get out. Go watch a comedy. If you got the time and you're in the middle of it, put on a 30-minute comedy.
Yeah.
Just get out of your own headspace, because it's us. We are the ones who are causing our own problems.
Yeah.
We have to own it, and we have to make the changes to do it.
Mhm. That was beautiful. And it actually leads
Oh, thank you.
perfectly into the last question, which I'm going to do an audience question. It was going to be for everybody, but just to be mindful of time, I'm going to give it to SJ, our beloved case study, to take on. This question is going to ride on the coattails of Shannon's positivity. It is from DIY Witch. It is, what is a moment that you always bring yourself back to and remind yourself of to combat imposter syndrome? What is a moment of reassurance that you hold close to your heart? And I want to just add a little thing to that to kind of encapsulate this whole thing. As somebody in imposter syndrome in the creative process, who experiences this often, what understanding people are watching and resonating with you as a creator, what is a positive voice, taking from Chris's advice, what is a positive spin that you can give to combat the imposter syndrome?
Taking breaks and treating yourself with kindness is going to be key and has been for me. Water, snacks, a changing of the environment, deep breaths. This does work. Mindfulness, mindful thinking, treating yourself with kindness mentally as well, allowing yourself to just simply be you with you in that moment and nothing else, which is difficult if you happen to have ADHD, but it can be worked with. I may have a million thoughts going through my head, but with practice, you can do this. It may still be difficult and it may be with you forever. Doesn't mean that it needs to control you. And it's just another obstacle that every single human faces. So that's the other thing is you're not alone. You're not alone. You're not the only person that is going through this. When it comes down to actual productivity, honestly, don't shoot for perfection. Shoot for your own sense of mediocrity. Go for the sake of creating. Create for yourself and your enjoyment of it. Do not look at your creations as something that others need to laud or hate or anything. Create just because you should, because you're going to fucking die if you don't. If you happen to be one of those people, if you're a creative, just do it. It sounds it sounds like so weird, but imposter syndrome prevents me. Right. Take a pen, blank sheet of paper, write the letter H on it. Why H? Because that's just what I picked at the moment. To Shannon's point, make a list. And then put down on there, make a list, and then check that off as having been done. You got something done. It's the recognition that you got something done. The last bit came out of the classes that I taught. Fuck the rules. Dare to suck. Dare
Yes.
to fail. Dare to do the worst you possibly can. Accept the mission of just being accept the mission of whatever this is. For me, it ended up working a little bit. The imposter syndrome believes that you're not good enough. All right, bet. Let's see exactly how much I can legitimately screw this up. And then my creation in that moment ended up turning into, holy shit, I'm actually doing it. Because I gave myself a quick little, there was a little hack. I gave myself 5 minutes. Create for 5 minutes, only for 5 minutes. Any creative knows that if you can be in the zone for 5 minutes, you can be in it for another 5 hours.
Yep.
So give yourself 5 minutes. And if you find that you can't do it after that, congrats, you still got it in the 5 minutes. Job done. You've succeeded. So imposter syndrome is not something that needs to control you. You can work with it. It is ultimately there to simply protect you against something in the past. And it's a good thing. It's an afraid thing. But fear, it's developed as a survival technique. And that's where we get it from. And that's a good thing. Fear is what keeps us alive sometimes. Accept it for what it is and work with it and find a way around it. Don't look at it as a weakness. Look at it as you knowing about it is quite possibly your greatest strength.
That's beautiful. What a great way to wrap that up. I want to give everybody a chance to talk about their projects, what they're working on, what they do. I'm going to start with Chris. Where can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram and Threads. I'm, I guess, not content creator. I'm not sure what to label myself right now.
Yes,
I'm
you
just
are.
Your creator
Own it.
advocate.
Own it! Damn it! This is the imposter syndrome.
It's not impossible. It's like I'm not sure what to label. I'm just like I'm just here to spread the good vibes.
Good vibes, man.
That's what I do. You can find me on Threads a lot more. I'm dilly dallying with someone on Threads. And yeah, what I do, if you don't know, I guess that what sets me apart is I do D&D for therapy. If I could, I would show you a little bit more about what goes on there, but I can't because good old HIPAA. So the best you get is like a table saying, "Hey, here's what we're doing today."
And Shannon, what about you?
Well, for starters, I actually finally set up my Twitch channel today. So,
Well
yay, go
done.
me. Woohoo! So, they didn't have Imagine If, so I did Imagine If Media, so you can look for that on, because that's like my official business name. You can look for that on Twitch, but all of my links are at imagineif.shop. And I'm not a fan of social media right now, but I love it on Threads. So you will find me there pretty much all the time. I am on TikTok and Instagram. And like I said, we do have a Facebook community as well. I don't love the Book of Faces, but we have people there. So I am there because the people are there. So we do something every day. It's all, and when I say we, I founded a community called Bring Joy Forward. It's actually a network that I founded last year that it's in its infancy. And again, we're talking about creative visions and all that kind of stuff before. My vision for this is that is a community space, a network where communities can bring their communities in, and it is led by holistic wellness professionals so that we always have something good for you in there to support you on your journey. And the idea is that you can also find services from people in there as well. And so the only thing that we do consistently right now is in our Facebook group, we have every single day, we have something that is happening. So I do Monday Message where I do a tarot poll every Monday. And we have a podcast, Bring Joy Forward, that comes out every Tuesday. Go me, because I put all the tech behind that. So anybody who knows that, don't come at me with my audio because it's mostly good. Because this is what I learned. If you strive for perfection, you're never gonna get there. Just get the shit out because people need it. So just get it out there. And then you can go to bringjoyforward.com, or if you want to go directly to the community space, you can go to community.bringjoyforward.com. And yeah, I mean, my particular brand of magic is I use art mostly and play for everything that I do. And I'm writing a book on grief that has just made it through phase 1 of the editor. Woohoo! So I'm doing some little mods. Thank you. 5 years in the making on that one. So we'll see when it gets to the next round. And let's see, there was something else I was going to say, and I don't remember because my ADD has just been sitting in this chair for too long for me to remember. So yeah, that's it. That's the most of it.
We will
That's enough.
We will pass it to
imagineif.shop.
There you go. Okay. I'll actually put that in there. imagineif.shop. And SJ, what about you?
So my real name is Steve Kraus. I ended up having to use this as my voiceover name because Steve Kraus is all over the place as other people, and some of them not so nice. So you can find this name. It was chosen to be unique. You can find it pretty much anywhere now. On Threads, sj.mckeen. You can also find my life's work at evandale.com, evindale.com. You can find me on Twitch there as well, twitch.tv/Evandale. My personal account, my personal Twitch account, I don't really do too much on, but it is SJVox. Um, and if you are a video game player, if you play Showgunners, I am Marty Manson. And if you play Ground Branch, these are the most recent work that I've done. Ground Branch, which came out in 2018, but they are now replacing all the AI voices. And I'm one of the main voices of the Dagger team, which is the player team or the Blue 14. So that is already out. Both of these games are already out on Steam, but the an update soon on Ground Branch, and you'll be able to hear me there. Anywhere else, just look for SJ McKean, and you'll find me somewhere.
Awesome. I put Evandale up for folks to go check out the Twitch channel. I'm in some of those games, so it's a great.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we have stuff. The schedule is being updated now, so but you can
We're
find it
all
over there.
also in the collective, so come hang out with us because it's nice.
Oh my God, of course.
Yes.
This whole thing up there.
Yeah, this
TTRPG
thing up
Collective,
there,
by, for,
we
and
love
with
it.
TTRPG people and gamers and all sorts of things. And we all met there because of Erin.
Yeah.
No.
Here.
Yay, imposter syndrome,
It's
don't
true.
yell at me. So yes, if you are a fan of TTRPGs, or you work in the space, or you are outside of the space, it's a mutual aid and networking space. Part of that mutual aid is offering free Edu-panel series like this one that don't necessarily talk about people with years of experience in a professional setting, but more of years of experience in their own bodies and their own lives. And I think that's really, really important. And as creative people, we can't forget that we are all so unique and so beautiful and so messy. And I mean, take it from, I had a 3-day anxiety attack. So I am literally like coming out of the thick of it. So it's
Okay. I was noticing, I was like, I haven't seen Erin for a while. I was wondering about her.
It makes me feel so loved because and that's something I'm allowing myself to feel because it's part of my self-worth work. But you and Ondoin both like noticed that, and Ondoin was like checking in on me, and I just felt so, I was like, this is, my brain wanted to be like, I'm not worth that, but I was just like, you know what? No, fuck that. This is like a life and relationship destroyer voice, and I'm not letting it take space. So thank you. I really appreciate that you thought of me in that time. I was not thinking of me, so I appreciate that.
I was like, it's been a while since I've heard anything, and I actually went and looked at when like the collective posted, and when you posted, like, oh, it's been 4 days.
Oh no,
that's quite a while. I'm hoping everything's okay.
Yeah, I'm okay.
I noticed.
I thank you so
very
much.
sweet.
But that's what we do for each other at the TTRPG Collective.
Yeah.
But this was our very first one, and I'm so sorry we didn't get to all of the questions, but some of them were kind of answered. So I wanted to just like
We could do this again.
Yeah, if you all need like more talks about some of the heavier stuff, that's something that I am at least willing to facilitate, and I'm sure we can always get more folks in addition to these 3 wonderful human beings who've so selflessly volunteered their time. But yeah, it's been like such a privilege to be able to build up this community and share these experiences to all of you that are watching. So yeah, I'm really bad at goodbyes. I'm like a Midwesterner, but on the East Coast. So thank you all so much.
It's been a pleasure.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
You then get up. You just got to get up and just walk away.
Yeah, just walk out, walk into the sun,
Walk out, bitches.
Like the Hulk or whatever that. Yes, so thank you so much for watching. This will be a VOD on YouTube, and I'm also going to give the recording to Shannon to put on Bring Joy Forward if she would like. So it will be around, and I'll announce it in the collective as well. So with that being said, everybody have a really good night. I don't have a stream ending screen, so it's going to be very abrupt, just to warn you all. So, but goodbye, everybody.
Everybody
Thank
just breathe.
you.